This is the story of a snowstorm horror I'm going to tell you. It happened to a friend of mine named Daniel about 4 years ago, and to this day, he doesn't like to talk about it. But one night, over a few drinks, he told me everything. And, when he did, my hands went cold, like the snow had crept into the room with his words. Daniel was an experienced hiker, not the reckless type, always careful with maps, weather reports, supplies, you name it. That winter, he decided to go on a solo trip to the mountains of Colorado. He wanted to spend a few days in a remote cabin he'd rented, far from cell towers and civilization. It was supposed to be peaceful, a break from work, from noise, from people. He left on a Thursday morning. The forecast was clear. The first 2 days were quiet, calm, even beautiful. Thick blankets of snow covered the ground. Trees stood like frozen statues, and the sky was a smooth silver. The cabin was small but well built, with a fireplace and plenty of firewood stacked neatly outside. Everything seemed perfect. But on the third night, a storm hit. A real one. The kind you feel deep in your chest when the wind howls. Not like air, but like something alive and angry. Snow fell in thick, endless waves, and the wind slammed against the wooden walls of the cabin. It howled through the cracks like whispers just out of reach. The windows shook in their frames. Daniel wasn't worried at first. He had supplies, food, and water. He stayed inside, kept the fire going, and read by lantern light. But by the second day of the storm, things started to feel off. The first thing he noticed was the silence between the gusts of wind. It was too quiet, like the forest was holding its breath. He looked out the window, but everything was white. No tracks, no trees, just snow and fog and more snow. It was like the world outside had been erased. That night, he heard something. Not the wind. It was a knocking. Slow. Deliberate. 3 knocks. Then silence. Daniel froze. He waited, heart pounding. Then again. 3 knocks. On the front door. It was late, nearly midnight. Who would be out there in a storm like this? He grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the door. "Hello?" he called out. No answer, just wind. But when he opened the door, nobody was there. Just snow blowing in his face and the icy dark. He told himself it must have been the wind. Maybe a loose branch hit the door. He shut it, locked it, and went back to bed. The next morning, he found footprints. Not his. Bare feet. Human. They started at the front door and circled the cabin. Over and over. No shoes, no socks. Just long, narrow footprints in the snow. They were too deep, too clear to be old, and no new snow had fallen since midnight. But here's the thing. There were no prints leading to the cabin, only around it. Daniel, panicked. He grabbed his radio. Dead. The storm had knocked it out. His phone had no signal. He considered leaving, but the snow was too deep, and visibility was near zero. He was trapped. That night, the knocking came back. Louder, more urgent. Not just at the door this time. The windows too. The back wall. 3 knocks. Everywhere. He didn't answer. Just sat by the fire, clutching an axe he found in the corner. Then he heard a voice. A whisper, coming through the chimney. "Let me in." Daniel stood up so fast he knocked over the chair. He stared at the fireplace, which still crackled with flames. "Who's there?" he shouted. No answer. Just soft laughter. Like a child's, but twisted. He didn't sleep that night. The next day, he boarded up the windows. Nailed the door. Shut. He didn't care how crazy it looked. He had to make it to the end of the storm. But that night, something got inside. It started with the fire going out, all at once. Just whoosh. Gone. No smoke. No ember. Cold fell into the cabin like a shadow. Then the whispers came again. This time inside the room. "Daniel." He spun around. Nothing. Just the dark. He lit the lantern. There in the corner, something moved. It looked human. Pale. Naked. Long limbs that bent too far, like broken branches. Its head cocked to the side, and when the lantern light touched its face, he saw black, empty eyes. No nose, no lips, just skin, stretched too tight over bone. Daniel ran. He didn't think. He just tore down the boards, threw open the door, and stumbled into the storm. Snow swallowed him in seconds, but he didn't care. He ran until his lungs burned, until the cold bit through his jacket. Then somehow he saw lights, faint but real. A ranger's cabin. He banged on the door until a man opened it. Daniel collapsed inside. When he told the ranger what happened, they didn't believe him at first. But when they went back to the cabin the next day, the ranger grew quiet. There were footprints. Hundreds of them. All barefoot, all circling the cabin again and again. And inside, claw marks on the walls. Long, deep gouges, as if something had tried to tear its way out. The fireplace was full of ash, but no wood had been burned. Daniel never went back to the mountains. He moved to Florida, swears off winter. And he never spends a night alone anymore. Asked him once, just once, what he really thought that thing was. He looked at me, eyes serious, and said, "It wasn't one thing, it was many, all wearing the same skin, and they wanted mine." Since he told me that story, I can't hear the wind the same way anymore. Every time it howls against the window, I think of those 3 knocks. And sometimes, I dream about footprints, in the snow, not leading toward the house, only around it, again and again. So if you ever find yourself alone during a snowstorm, and you hear a knock on the door, just don't open it. Some things are cold enough to freeze your bones. But others want more than warmth, they want you. This is the story of a snowstorm horror I am going to tell you. It happened to my cousin Lily, someone who never believed in the supernatural. She was smart, logical, and always had a way of explaining things, until that one weekend in December that changed her forever. She hasn't spoken much since then, and when she does, it's in whispers. What happened to her still sends chills through my spine, and I can only hope that by telling you, I'll finally stop dreaming about it. It started when Lily and her 3 friends, Mark, Jenna, and Ethan, decided to go on a winter getaway. They found an old rental cabin up north in Maine, isolated deep in the woods. It was cheap, and they were broke college kids looking for adventure. The owner told them over the phone, "Only stay if the weather's good. If a storm's coming, get out early." They laughed it off. The first day was magical. Snow falling. Gently, trees frosted with white, and the cabin itself was charming, with old wooden beams, dusty furniture, and even a fireplace. There was no cell service, but they had board games, hot cocoa, and plenty of snacks. It felt like something out of a postcard. The second night, things started to shift. They were playing cards when the wind picked up, shaking the windows. Jenna got up to throw another log in the fire and said, "Did anyone else hear that?" They all froze. A soft sound, almost like crying, was coming from outside. At first, they thought it was the wind, but it was too clear. A woman's voice. Quiet. Desperate. Lily and Ethan went to the door and opened it just a crack. Nothing. Just a wall of white snow and darkness. But the crying stopped the moment the door creaked. They shrugged it off. Maybe a fox or some animal. They shut the door, locked it, and went back to their game. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. She kept hearing something outside, soft scratching, like fingernails on wood. She tried to wake Jenna, but she was fast asleep. Lily got up, walked over to the window, and pulled the curtain aside. There, standing just beyond the glass, was a figure. Pale, thin, a woman in a tattered white dress. No shoes, her head was down, hair covering her face. Lily stumbled back, heart racing. When she looked again, she was gone. She didn't sleep a second after that. The next morning, she told the others. Of course, they didn't believe her. Mark teased her. Jenna said she probably dreamed it. But Ethan looked worried. He said, "When I went to get wood this morning, I found something." They followed him to the back porch. In the snow were bare footprints, small, like a woman's. No shoe marks, just feet. And they didn't lead anywhere, just appeared out of nowhere, walked in a wide circle around the cabin, and vanished. That night, the storm hit hard. The wind roared like an animal. Snow came down in sheets, thick and fast. They lost power around 9. The fireplace was their only light. The temperature dropped quickly, and even with blankets, it was bitter cold. Then the crying came back. Closer this time. Right outside the door. Soft sobs, followed by whispers none of them could understand. Ethan said, "We have to let her in. What if she's real? What if she's dying out there?" But Lily stopped him. "Look at the footprints. Nothing out there makes sense," Jenna said. "We don't open that door." And then it knocked. 3 times. Soft. Polite. Like a child asking to be let in. They sat in silence. The fire flickered low. Then another knock. Louder. And a voice. "Let me come in. It's so cold." Mark grabbed a flashlight and stormed to the door. "Enough of this! I'm ending this now." He yanked the door open. Snow blew in violently, coating the floor. But no one was there. They looked all around. No one. Mark turned back, shook his head, and then froze. Because standing in the tree line, far in the distance, was the woman. She didn't move. She didn't blink. They shut the door and pushed furniture in front of it. The rest of the night was chaos. Scratching came from the walls. Windows rattled, even though nothing touched them, and always the crying. Sometimes outside, sometimes from the attic. Lily finally snapped. "We need to leave. We need to leave now." But they were snowed in. Doors frozen shut. Windows sealed with ice. They were trapped. Ethan, trying to be brave, said he would go up to the attic. Maybe there was something up there. An animal. Something explainable. He climbed the stairs with a flashlight. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then screaming. They found him in the corner of the attic, shaking, mumbling the same thing over and over. She was inside all along. They carried him back downstairs, but he wouldn't speak again. That night, the fireplace went out. The cabin grew silent. Too silent. And then, the woman came in. No door opened. No window broke. She just appeared, standing near the hearth, dripping, snow that melted into the floor like ink. She looked up. Her eyes were hollow pits, black and wide. One by one, they felt it, the cold. Not just in the room, but in their minds. Like something slipping into them, peeling away their thoughts, their memories. Lily said later that it felt like drowning in snow. Silent. Endless. She passed out. When she woke up, it was morning. The storm had stopped. Sunlight poured in through a broken window. Jenna was gone. Mark was gone. Ethan was dead, his body cold and stiff, curled up like he'd frozen in terror. Lily crawled out of the cabin and walked 3 miles through the snow before she found a ranger's station. They didn't believe her, said the storm must have made her hallucinate. But when they went back to the cabin, they found something chilling. Dozens of footprints. Small. Bare. Walking in circles. And on the walls, scratched over and over again, was a sentence. "Let me in." No sign of Jenna or Mark. No blood, no struggle, just gone. To this day, Lily doesn't go near snow. She moved to Arizona, hates the cold, and she never stays in cabins, not even hotels that look too quiet. She told me once, her voice shaking, it wasn't just a ghost. It was a presence. A thing that waits for storms, for people trapped. It doesn't kill. It takes. And sometimes, in a blizzard, you might still hear it. A soft knock, 3 times. A voice, whispering just outside. "Your door, let me in, and if you do, you may never leave that cabin again." This is the story of a snowstorm horror I am going to tell you. It happened to my uncle, Thomas, nearly 20 years ago. He was a quiet man, not easily shaken, and never talked much about the past. But once, just once, he told me this story. He said it so seriously, so quietly that I believed every word, and after you hear it, you might believe it too. Thomas used to work as a delivery driver for a small courier company in Vermont. Most of the time, he did routine drop-offs in town, but one winter he got sent on a long-haul trip to a remote lodge, up in the mountains. They needed a rush delivery, a box of supplies for a client snowed in and unreachable any other way. The forecast looked rough, but he figured he could beat the storm, make the delivery, and return the same day. He left early in the morning, the roads already slick with snow. The sky was gray and heavy, and the trees looked like they were holding their breath, weighed down by snow and silence. He followed the map onto smaller and smaller roads, winding up the mountains. After hours of driving, he finally reached the last stretch, a narrow trail through a dense pine forest, barely wide enough for the truck. Snow started falling harder. Tires slipped, visibility dropped. Eventually the road just disappeared under the snow, but then he saw it. A sign, Black Hollow Lodge, 2 miles ahead. He pressed on. The snow was relentless, falling sideways in the wind. Just as he began to wonder if he'd made a mistake, he saw the lodge through the trees. It looked abandoned, gray and still, with shutters closed tight and snow piled up halfway to the windows. No lights, no smoke from the chimney. Thomas parked, grabbed the box, and knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again. Finally, the door creaked open by itself. He called out, "Delivery for Black Hollow Lodge." Still nothing. The wind howled behind him, so he stepped inside. It was warmer, but just barely. A dusty lobby stretched out before him. Old wooden floors, faded wallpaper, and a giant moose head mounted over the front desk. He set the box down and looked around. That's when he noticed the smell. It was faint, but sour, like something old and rotten had been left to sit. He called out again. "Hello? Anyone here?" Footsteps answered him, from upstairs. Heavy. Slow. He froze. They moved across the ceiling, then stopped directly above him. He shouted again, voice louder this time, trying to sound braver than he felt. "I've got a delivery!" Silence. Then, one soft step, then another, and another, descending the stairs, just around the corner. He watched the hallway where the stairs were, heart pounding. Then they stopped. He waited. No one came. He finally stepped around the corner and found the staircase completely empty. No footprints, no one there. He backed away quickly and turned to leave. But when he reached the front door, it was shut. He hadn't closed it. He was sure of it. And when he pulled the handle, it didn't open. It was frozen shut. Solid. Ice crusted along the frame. He looked around for a phone, found one behind the front desk, but it was dead. Just a dull click on the line. He reached for his cell phone. No signal. The snow outside piled higher. Night fell fast. He thought about smashing a window, but something about the lodge, it held him back. It felt wrong. Like being watched. He found a flashlight in the truck and decided to stay the night and try to leave in the morning. The lodge still had some furniture, even a few dusty blankets. He lit the fireplace in the lounge, with the help of some matches he'd found, and sat in front of it, trying to stay warm. That's when he heard it. A voice. Not in the room, not outside, but from the walls. At first, it was a whisper. Then it became clearer. "Don't look upstairs." He jumped to his feet, spun around. No one. He checked every corner, every shadow. The voice came again, softer this time. "Don't look upstairs." He wanted to run, to break a window and dive out into the storm. But he forced himself to stay calm. Maybe it was in his head. Maybe stress. Cold. Exhaustion. But then, something moved upstairs. This time, he saw it. A figure at the top of the staircase. Just for a moment. Tall. Thin. Wearing something long and black like a coat that dragged the floor. No face, just a pale blur where a face should be. He blinked, and it was gone. He didn't sleep that night. Just sat by the fire, gripping the flashlight. Around 3 a.m., the fire went out. He got up to relight it, and saw the box. The one he delivered. It had been opened, and inside was something he hadn't noticed before. An old book, bound in black leather, covered in frost. No title, just strange symbols burned into the cover. He reached out, and the book moved, like something inside it shifted. He stepped back. The fire roared to life behind him, on its own. He spun around. No one there. Then the voice came again, this time from the fireplace. Don't look upstairs. He ran. He didn't care how deep the snow was. He smashed the door with a fire iron, broke through the ice, and sprinted to his truck. The engine didn't start. Of course it didn't. So he sat there, in the dark, watching the lodge, then the upstairs. Lights flicked on. Every window on the second floor glowed yellow, and shadows moved behind them. Dozens. Pacing. Turning. Watching him. He doesn't remember falling asleep. But when he woke up, it was daylight. The snow had stopped. He started the truck. It worked. He drove like hell, straight down the mountain, not stopping once. When he got back to town, he told his boss about the delivery. But here's the strange part. The lodge didn't exist. At least, not anymore. It had burned down 10 years earlier. Lightning strike. Total loss. No survivors. 5 guests, 1 manager. All died. He didn't believe it, until they showed him the news clipping. The article even had photos. There it was. Black Hollow Lodge. And in the picture, standing in the upstairs window, was the same figure he saw. Pale face. Black coat. Watching. He doesn't drive into the mountains anymore. Not in snow. Not even in good weather. And he never accepts a delivery that mentions anything old, abandoned, or off the map. I asked him once, "What do you think it wanted?" He looked at me, eyes tired, and said, "It wasn't me it wanted. It wanted someone to take the book. Someone to open it." And then he whispered, "I think it followed me." Ever since he told me that, I check the corners of rooms before I go to sleep. I listen to the wind, and sometimes, only in the dead of winter, I hear a voice, faint in the walls, "Don't look upstairs," and I don't, not ever. This is the story of a snowstorm horror I'm going to tell you. It happened to me 5 years ago, and I swear to you, it's real. I haven't spoken about it to many people because, well, most wouldn't believe me. But I need to get it out. Maybe telling you will help me forget, or at least help me sleep through one winter without waking up screaming. It all started with a trip that should have been simple. A group of friends, me, my girlfriend Leah, her brother Sam, and his girlfriend Kelsey, we decided to rent a remote cabin up in the Rockies for a New Year's getaway. We wanted snow, silence, and a break from our phones and the world. The cabin had good reviews, isolated but cozy. A wood stove, solar power, a stocked kitchen. Sounded perfect. We drove up on December 29th. The sky was clear, though the air bit like knives. There was already a couple feet of snow on the ground, but the roads were plowed, and we made it without trouble. The cabin was everything the listing promised. Wooden, rustic, and surrounded by nothing but trees and white silence. The kind of place you could disappear into. The first night was calm. We played cards, drank wine, and watched snow fall through the windows. Leah and I took the upstairs room, and I remember thinking how peaceful everything felt. Cold, but peaceful. The second night, the storm started. It came fast. The trees whipped in the wind like they were alive. The snow fell thick and heavy, covering the windows, the car, and the tracks we'd left. By morning, we were trapped. The doors were frozen shut, and there was no signal. But we had food and water, and the power still worked. We figured we'd wait it out. That afternoon, I found something strange behind the cabin. A well, covered with wood planks and snow, nearly hidden. I only noticed it because I slipped walking around the side of the house and landed near it. Something about it felt wrong. I didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, but my skin crawled just standing near it. I didn't tell the others about it then. I should have. That night, we heard the knocking. It was faint at first. We thought it was the wind. But then, it came again. 3 knocks. Perfectly spaced. Deliberate. We froze. Leah whispered, "Did you hear that?" I nodded. We all gathered near the front door. Sam opened it. There was no one. Just snow, thick and endless. He stepped out onto the porch, looked around with a flashlight. Then he called out, "Hello? Someone out there?" No answer. But the next morning, we found the footprints. Small, bare, human, leading up to the porch and circling the cabin. Then they disappeared into the woods. We searched around, but there were no signs of anyone. Not even animals. Just those prints and silence. That night, we locked every door and window. We put furniture in front of the door. We kept the wood stove burning high and tried to ignore the feeling, like something was watching us from outside. But the knocking came back. This time, at the back of the cabin. 3 knocks. Then the whispering started. We couldn't make out the words at first. It was like static, just beyond understanding. But it was there, curling through the walls, brushing against our ears. Then we heard it clearly. "I'm cold." We didn't sleep. We just sat in a circle, back to back, listening. In the early morning, Leah screamed. She was staring at the window. "I saw someone! Right there!" We all rushed over. Nothing. But when we checked the snow, new footprints. Bare. Again. We argued about what to do. Sam wanted to go look for help, but the storm was worse than ever. No one was getting out of those woods alive in that. I finally told them about the well. We went to check it. The snow had mostly covered it again. But we found the planks. When we pulled them back, something hit us immediately. A smell. Rotting. Wet and foul. And beneath the planks, the well wasn't dry. There was something floating in it. We couldn't make it out at first, but as our eyes adjusted, we saw the long, pale limbs. A woman's body. No clothes, no eyes, just skin, bloated and white, drifting just below the surface. We all screamed and dropped the planks back in place. Kelsey started crying. Leah vomited in the snow. We ran back inside and bolted the door. That night, the whispers came back. But this time, they weren't outside. They were coming from the walls. The voice sounded closer. Colder. Like it was inside. "The house with us. I'm still cold. Please, help me." We backed into the living room. Sam held the fireplace poker like a weapon. Leah grabbed a kitchen knife. Kelsey just stood there, shaking. Then we saw her, standing at the top of the stairs, wet hair hanging over her face, skin stretched tight, dripping water, eyes completely black. She didn't move, didn't speak. We blinked, and she was gone, just vanished. We checked the entire upstairs. Nothing, but our bags were soaked, every bed drenched, like someone had dragged a body through them. That night, Sam stayed up on watch. I remember waking up to hear him pacing. Then I heard the door creak and silence. I got up and went downstairs. The front door was wide open. Snow blew in across the floor. Sam was gone. We followed his tracks into the woods. They led to the well and stopped. No sign of him. No broken planks. No struggle. Just gone. We sealed the door with nails we found in the tool shed, but it didn't stop her. She appeared again the next night, this time in the kitchen, just standing there, fingers twitching, head tilted, staring at nothing. We screamed, but she didn't move. She didn't need to move, because every time she appeared, it got colder, not just around us, but inside us, like she was draining our heat, our strength, our sanity. Kelsey was the next to go. She walked into the snow barefoot while we slept, left the door wide open. We never saw her again. That morning, Leah and I broke a window and climbed out. We didn't care how deep the snow was. We walked, for hours. We were half frozen when we stumbled across a rescue team searching the woods for a lost hiker. They took us in, wrapped us in blankets, and brought us back to town. We told them what happened. They went to check the cabin. They found it. But there was no well, no footprints, no signs of a struggle, just an empty house with a cold fireplace. No one ever found Sam or Kelsey, And the woman in the well? No records. No missing person. Nothing. Just silence. But I still hear her sometimes. When it snows too hard. When the wind howls through cracks in the windows. That whisper. I'm cold. So, if you ever rent a cabin in the mountains and you hear a knock, at night, 3 soft knocks, don't open the door, and whatever you do, don't look in the well. This is the story of a snowstorm horror I am going to tell you. It happened in a forgotten little town called Grey Ridge, buried deep in the northern woods where the winters hit hardest. Nobody talks about that place anymore. In fact, if you try to look it up, you'll hardly find anything. But it existed. I know because I went there. And I swear to you, what I saw, what I survived, still haunts my dreams. It was January. I was working as a freelance photographer, chasing stories in strange places to build my portfolio. I had heard whispers of Grey Ridge from an old man I met at a gas station just off the highway. He said the town used to be thriving before a blizzard wiped half of it out in 1978. After that, people moved away. The survivors wouldn't talk about it. The town was never officially erased, but it faded off the map. It was like it didn't want to be found. That made it interesting. A perfect place for eerie winter photos, maybe even a little urban exploration. I was young, curious, and stupid. I borrowed my cousin's Jeep, packed my camera gear, food, and a sleeping bag, and headed north. The closer I got to where Grey Ridge was supposed to be, the worse the weather became. Thick snow lined the trees. My tires slipped more than once on the winding back roads. Eventually, I had to leave the Jeep at the end of a broken trail and hike, the last mile in on foot. By the time I reached the town, it was almost dark. It looked like something frozen in time. Broken fences, boarded-up windows, snow swallowing everything. I passed a general store with shattered glass and rusted signs. There was a schoolhouse, its door swinging open in the wind, and even a small church with a collapsed roof. And then, I saw it. An old house standing at the edge of town. Unlike the others, this one looked intact. The snow had been disturbed leading up to the porch. Like someone had been walking there, recently. That should have been enough for me to turn around, but I didn't. The front door was slightly open, so I pushed it wider and stepped inside. It was warmer than I expected. Dusty, yes. Silent, yes. But not abandoned. There were chairs, a fireplace, an old table with plates still set like someone had been about to eat. There was no power, but melted candles sat in every corner. I figured maybe someone was squatting there. I shouted, "Hello? Anyone home?" No answer. I waited. Listened. Then I saw something in the corner of the room. A photograph. Black and white. Old. 4 people standing outside the very same house. A man, a woman, 2 children. They weren't smiling. In fact, they looked frightened. Behind them, in the window of the house, was a shape. Faint, tall, pale. It gave me chills. I took a few photos of the house, but I felt strange. The quiet was too quiet. No wind, no animals, not even the creak of old wood. Just dead silence. That night, the storm hit. Hard. Snow slammed against the windows like fists. I couldn't even see the porch from inside. I set up my sleeping bag by the fireplace and tried to stay warm. Around midnight, I heard the door creak open. My heart froze. I sat up, flashlight in hand, and shined it toward the front door. It was wide open. Snow blew in across the floor. I hadn't heard footsteps. I walked to the door, shining the light outside. No footprints. Just white, endless snow. Then I turned around. The photograph was gone. I hadn't moved it. I swear on my life. I searched the room. Nothing. Then the upstairs floor creaked. Once. Twice. Someone, or something, was up there. I should have left right then. But I thought maybe a drifter had come in during the storm and gone upstairs. Maybe they took the photo. I called out, "Hey, I'm not here to bother you. Just sheltering from the storm." No reply. I climbed the staircase slowly, each step groaning beneath me. The hallway upstairs was lined with doors. I opened them one by one. Bedroom, empty. Bathroom, empty. Storage, dust and old furniture. But the last door wouldn't open. I jiggled. The handle, locked. Then I heard a knock, from the other side. 3 soft knocks. I backed away, heart thudding. Another knock. Then a whisper. Cold. That word. So faint, so sad. Then silence. I slept downstairs again, barely shutting my eyes. The storm didn't let up. The next morning, the entire town was buried. My Jeep was likely gone under 5 feet of snow. I was stuck. I tried to leave anyway. Packed my things, put on every layer I had, and stepped outside. But the trail I had used to hike in, it wasn't there anymore. Just blank, untouched snow, stretching in all directions. No trees I recognized. It was like the storm had spun the town into some other place. I wandered for hours. Every direction I walked, I somehow ended up back in front of that same house. And it looked different. Older. More rotten. Windows cracked. Candles melted into puddles, and there was a figure in the top window. Just for a second. Watching. That night, I locked the door, blocked it with furniture, and didn't sleep. I kept hearing that voice. Over and over. Cold. So cold. The next morning, I decided to open that upstairs door. I needed to know. The lock was old, rusted. I used a fire poker to pry it open. Inside was a child's bedroom, frozen solid. The bed, the toys, even the curtains, covered in a sheet of ice, like someone had frozen the moment in time, and in the middle of the bed was the photograph. Only now, the family was gone. Just the house, and the shape in the window had moved closer. I ran, out the front door, through the snow, blindly screaming. Stumbled, fell, and blacked out in the cold. When I woke up, I was in a hospital. They told me a rescue team had found me unconscious near a ranger station over 10 miles from Grey Ridge. I told them about the house, the town, the photograph. They said I was hallucinating from exposure, that no such town had been found nearby, no records, no remains. But when they returned my things, my camera was still in my bag. I flipped through the photos. The town was gone. Only snow, empty forest. But the last photo, one I didn't take, it showed the inside of the house, and a pale figure in the upstairs window, watching me. I've never gone near the mountains in winter again, and every time it snows I dream of Grey Ridge, of that voice whispering, cold. And sometimes when I wake up, my bedroom is covered in frost.